The neighbor next door. It all began with a simple misunderstanding over a patch of land. A few inches, really. The kind of thing that neighbors should be able to resolve with a handshake and a smile. But with Mark, my neighbor, things were never simple. When I first moved into the neighborhood, Mark seemed like any other suburban dad. He mowed his lawn every Saturday, kept his hedges trimmed to perfection, and waved politely whenever I passed by. I even brought him a bottle of wine as a gesture of goodwill when I moved in. He thanked me, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. It felt performative, but I brushed it off. The trouble began a few months later. I had hired a landscaping company to redo my backyard, hoping to turn it into a little oasis. As part of the project, the landscapers installed a new fence along the property line. I'd checked the boundaries carefully before they started, using the surveyor's report from when I bought the house. Everything was in order, or so I thought. The day after the fence went up, Mark showed up at my door, face flushed with anger. He shoved a stack of papers in my face, ranting about how the fence encroached on his property by 6 inches. "I'm sorry, but this is where the surveyor marked the line," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Your surveyor is wrong," he snapped. "I've lived here for 20 years and I know where my property ends." He stormed off before I could say another word. I figured it would blow over. People get upset about these things, but surely a 6-inch discrepancy wasn't worth a feud. I was wrong. Over the next few weeks, Mark's behavior grew increasingly bizarre. It started small. He'd glare at me from his porch whenever I stepped outside. Then came the notes. Handwritten letters slipped under my door, accusing me of stealing his land and threatening legal action. I ignored them, hoping he'd tire himself out. But ignoring Mark only seemed to fuel his rage. One morning, I woke up to find my trash cans knocked over and garbage strewn across my driveway. At first, I thought it was raccoons, but then I noticed the trail of muddy footprints leading back to Mark's house. I confronted him, but he denied everything with a smirk that made my blood boil. "Prove it," he said, leaning casually against his doorframe. The next night, I installed security cameras. It didn't take long to catch Mark in the act. The footage showed him sneaking into my yard under cover of darkness, slashing the tires on my car. I called the police, but they said it was a civil matter. They suggested mediation, but Mark refused to participate. "I'll see you in court," he snarled when I brought it up. The situation escalated into a full-blown war. Mark started blasting loud music at odd hours, often in the middle of the night. When I called the police for a noise complaint, he'd turn it off just before they arrived, grinning triumphantly as they drove away. He'd also taken to parking his truck so close to my driveway that I could barely get my car out. I retaliated by parking as close to his property as I legally could, which only seemed to amuse him. One day, I came home to find a massive pile of dirt dumped in front of my driveway, blocking my car from entering. I knew it was Mark, but proving it was another matter. The cops were no help, and the cost of having the dirt removed was staggering. I started to lose sleep. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside made me jump. I'd find myself staring out the window in the middle of the night, scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. My friends told me to move, but I couldn't. Selling the house felt like letting Mark win. And besides, I'd put too much money into it to leave now. The breaking point came on a chilly autumn evening. I was raking leaves in my backyard when I noticed smoke rising from behind the fence. I rushed over to find Mark burning what looked like a pile of my mail. Envelopes with my name and address were clearly visible in the flames. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted. Mark turned to me with a deranged look in his eyes. "Just cleaning up your mess," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed the garden hose and sprayed the fire, soaking Mark in the process. He lunged at me, and before I knew it, we were grappling on the ground, fists flying. The fight ended when his wife came out screaming, pulling him off me. I stumbled back inside, bloodied and shaking. That night, I sat in my kitchen, a kitchen knife clutched in my hand. My mind raced with dark thoughts. I envisioned confronting Mark, making him pay for everything he'd put me through. But as I sat there, the weight of my anger crushed me. I didn't want to become like him. Bitter, consumed by hatred. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I filed for a restraining order and sued Mark for harassment and damages. The legal battle was long and exhausting, but in the end, I won. The court ordered,